Consensus Hong Kong 2025 is where the global crypto community converges to shape the next era of Web3. From February 18th through the 20th, Hong Kong becomes the meeting point for leaders across finance, technology, and digital assets. This isn't just a conference, it's where deals are made, partnerships are forged, and new opportunities emerge. Consensus features exclusive networking lounges, expert-led sessions, and invaluable insights from top industry voices. Whether you're expanding your network, building your brand, or closing your next big deal, this is the event that moves markets. Visit CoinDesk.com/consensus-HK to secure your spot and use Real Vision 15 for 15% off. Don't miss your chance to be part of the industry's defining moment.
Hi everyone, sorry to interrupt, but this is the cheesy podcast bit that gets on everyone's nerves, but it's really important to me. Please, if you can like the channel and also subscribe, it helps me a lot to get the best guests in the world for you guys. So click like and subscribe. Appreciate it. Thanks. Hi, I'm Raoul Powell and welcome to my show, The Journeyman. And by now, you know, The Journeyman is my exploration, my journey where I take you along with me to that nexus of macro crypto and the exponential age of technology. If you remember, I came up with the idea of the exponential age in Global Macro Investor, my institutional research service, about 4 years ago. And when I started writing about it, people thought I'd lost my marbles. The macro guy looking at technology and looking at all of these technologies, what does he know about that? Why does he think that this is going to be the important thing? Surely he's wrong. Now, over time, I think the events have proven that I've been very right about this trend, and I think it's only going to accelerate. Literally what is happening in technology, particularly AI and robotics and genetic sciences and space, are ushering us in to, I think, the most important period of time in all of humanity. It's that big. I can't express how important this is and how the economic singularity is going to matter to all of us. And we have 5 years left before the economic structure of society and the economy and business changes forever. And it's much bigger than all of that too. It's opening up larger schools of thought about the nexus of physics, mathematics, philosophy, spiritualism, religion, and technology. It's at a wild time to be alive. It's such a privilege to be at the front of this, commenting on it, seeing it, and thinking it through. And I'm trying to think it through with you. Now, Global Macro Investor, I invited David Matten several years ago to join and help develop the exponential age. David is one of the most gifted writers and thinkers that I know, and it was a privilege to have him join me at Global Macro Investor. We then span out another research service for more people to make it cheaper and more accessible called the Exponentialist, which really is where David and I dig into all of this stuff on Real Vision, whether it's video conversations about universal consciousness or just a portfolio of how to invest to unfuck your future over the next 5 years. We cover it all, and David's writings are amazing. And I hadn't really interviewed David, so I wanted to bring him here for you, because I think you're going to love the conversation with myself and David Matten. Join me, Raoul Powell, as I go on a journey of discovery through the macro, crypto, and exponential age landscapes. In The Journeyman, I talk to the smartest people in the world so we can all become smarter together. David Matten, this is going to be fun because we've never done this before. So how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good, my friend. So before we dig in, David and I worked together at Global Macro Investor, where I invited him to take my half-baked thesis of the exponential age and turn it into something real. That ended up also becoming the Exponentialist, which is a whole service based around this. So David and I work with each other all the time, and I've never actually sat down to interview him. So I think it's going to be fun. I think you'll enjoy it. Hi, Raoul here. Listen, I think we've got until 2030 before the economic singularity arrives. Now, it might not be the exact date, but it's around then. So we have about 6 years to figure out how to unfuck our future. I've put together a report to help you called Prepare for 2030. It's going to help you take the first steps in that journey to make sure you're secure past 2030. So just click on the link below and start your journey now.
So David, let's go back in time a bit and just tell us about yourself.
Yeah, my deep background really is working with organizations to help them understand the future. I don't really like the word futurist. Sometimes I've been called that over the years. I have a bit of a vexed relationship with that word. It feels a bit like mystical and guru-ish. But I go inside large organizations and help the leaders there understand the future, imagine possible futures, think about how they're going to respond. And of course, over the last 15 years, that's just been primarily about talking to them about emerging technologies and how they're changing the world, how they're going to change their consumers, how they're going to change their clients, what they expect, what they can do about it. And it's just been a process of talking to them about increasingly powerful, in the end, scary technologies, and helping them think about how they can respond. And I also write I span a newsletter out that's called New World, Same Humans.
That's where I found you from that.
Exactly, which is how, and that's we can go down that tangent. That is the incredible power of putting yourself and your writing online. So many amazing contacts have come through that, including everything we do. And New World, Same Humans is all about emerging technologies, societies, the philosophical implications of what's happening now. So I'm really just a student of emerging technologies and their deep implications for all of us. And as you well know, that's what the Exponentialist is all about. That's why we love it.
So talk to me about how you see the exponential age and the thesis that I brought about. My general thesis was we're about to hit this nexus of technologies all hitting adoption phase. So it's going to be unlike kind of Metcalfe's law of adoption. It's actually going to be Metcalfe's law squared, which is Reed's law, this moment in time when we can't even understand what is happening because it's going to happen so fast. That gave birth to, I think many people have seen my work on the economic singularity. But, when you came into GMI, I said, okay, look, here's my general thesis, put it together. And you came up with, I'd done some work on what I thought was the foundation layer, and then you built on it. So let's start with that. How do we think about what is going on?
Yeah, there's a handful of really big frameworks I bring to the exponential age thesis, which foundationally is just the idea that a convergence of technologies are becoming exponentially more powerful. They're scaling at an exponential rate. And we're about to live through just a civilizational transformation enacted by those technologies. I have a handful of big frameworks that help me think through
that's quite a big statement, a civilizational transformation, right?
Yeah. We're and it's up to us to prove out that statement, because that is an absolutely huge claim. And I totally get that to many people it can sound far-fetched, it can sound somewhat hyperbolic. And so much of what we do and what I do and what I'm invested in is supporting that claim. I think it's becoming easier and easier to support. And we can get into some of the reasons why it's becoming tangible for people now in a way you can really sense. And that's sort of changing the conversation around all of this. But it's still a huge claim, and there's a long way to go. One of the big frameworks I bring, I named my newsletter after it. I've always been founded in this idea of new world, same human. So see the change that's happening now and see the technologies that are emerging now through the lens of fundamental human needs, fundamental human nature. That helps you build out the implications of what we're seeing. It doesn't tell you that much just to say, there's going to be even more AI in future. But if you think about what fundamental human needs that AI is going to unlock, how it's going to serve people in new ways, that allows you to think through some of the deep implications of all this. And one of the other big frameworks that I really built out inside GMI that we've talked about a lot is this foundational symbiotic relationship that's growing between energy and intelligence. Energy and intelligence, I think, are the two fundamental sort of forces at work inside the exponential age. and they're going to fuel one another. Intelligence is going to allow us to build out a decentralized new type of energy grid. And that energy grid is going to power more intelligence, which will allow us to make more energy. And we'll see this deep symbiotic relationship between energy and intelligence fueling everything inside the exponential age. And that flywheel, the AI energy flywheel, as I call it, again, just helps us. It underpins a lot of my thinking about how the exponential age is taking shape. And then we're just so, we're just so broad across so much of it.
Into that? Because that's the other exponential thing within that flywheel, though, is data, right? Because data creates intelligence. You need the energy for the data to create, it's part of that, right?
Yeah, I think.
Or do you include that as part of just intelligence?
Well, I think that when you're thinking through what the exponential age is at heart, it's a lot to do with the deep merging of two very distinct realms, the realm of information or data and the realm of atoms or physical reality. And what we're seeing in the exponential age is the deep merging of those two domains. So you're getting the emergence of something I call the unified digital physical field. We're weaving information through physical reality. And in practice, the way we're doing that is just by covering the world, every car, every connected object, every fridge, every sidewalk eventually, in microchips and in sensors. And what that does is create a huge amount of data about the physical environment. And intelligence will be the fuel, so to speak, that does useful work on that information. So energy, as we customarily think about it, does useful work on mass, on atoms. What I'm saying is intelligence can be understood as doing useful work on data. And that's why energy and intelligence are these two fundamental fueling forces, because data and atoms are merging. This is really at the deep heart of how I think through what's happening when we talk about the exponential age and what the exponential age is at heart.
So let's talk, before we go on to the intelligence side, because there's a lot to talk about there, let's talk about the energy side, right? Because people are still trapped in lines of thinking that it needs to be one thing or another. It can be, you can't use solar, you have to use oil, blah, 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 right? And then you've got Elon saying it's all Kardashev scale, and basically the sun is the largest nuclear reactor we will ever need, and that's enough. We just need to figure all that out. And then the oil people are like, no, you can't do that. But you have a fundamental different understanding of how this all comes together, and distributed grids and all of this. So talk through your energy thesis.
Yeah, I mean, energy is one of those spaces or domains where you really sense the politics at play in people's thinking. People have political allegiances that sort of bleed into their thinking about energy. And look, I totally get that. We all have our politics, So one of the first pieces I wrote for the Exponentialist was about the energy transformation. And some people sort of, they just react very strongly to the message that renewables and solar and wind are going to be an ever greater part of the energy mix, and probably in the end are going to be almost all of it. And they're like, oh, intermittency and the sun doesn't always shine and all this stuff, and which there's some truth in that. But I suppose I'm fundamentally with Elon. I think on energy, at least, you can sense the direction this is going in. It's moving towards a decentralized energy system based on solar, based on wind, and with extremely smart technologies to manage that, to manage storage and to manage the movement and management of that energy. And if you look at, the cost decreases, what underpins that vision of mine is this: if you look at the cost decrease of solar, the cost decrease of wind over the last, 20 years, it's just one of the most stunning exponentials we've ever seen. And people talk about it, and that's undeniable, and it's going to continue.
And it's the same with batteries. People say, well, storage is the issue, but fuck, the chart is vertical.
Yeah. And people then talk about intermittency but yeah, as you just said, the storage technologies are developing. Again, they're becoming exponentially better, exponentially more effective. And we're not going to have to move this energy around as much as people think, because it's going to be a deeply decentralized energy system.
Because people say
cannot make the leap away from a deeply centralized energy system. And that's why they struggle to imagine what I'm talking about.
Because they say things like, well, the grid can't cope.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not the same grid. So, yeah, explain this decentralization, because we're seeing it with nuclear as well. Small-sized nuclear reactors rebuilt by companies for their needs, right?
Yeah. I mean, a decentralized energy system is, in practice, is as simple as, look, we're all going to have our own solar panels. We're going to have our own windmills. We're going to have a local battery, like in your backyard. Like, this isn't rocket science. I mean, the technologies fueling it are incredible, but it's not a rocket science vision. It's just a vision people find very hard to sort of make the leap to. We're very accustomed to a deeply centralized, state-controlled, essentially, energy system. And what I'm saying is we're going to move towards a decentralized, citizen-controlled energy system where, yeah, you've got solar panels on your roof and windmills and all the rest of it. Now, look, I'm not saying that does all of it, because I can already read the comments coming in on YouTube. I'm not saying that does all of it. I'm not saying there's no room in the mix or need.
No, I mean, I think
for fossil fuels. There is, for sure. We will have that. But the direction in which this is trending, the mega trend here is undeniable. And look at China. Look at what China are doing. It's insane. I mean, I was reading yesterday, they wanted 1,200 gigawatts of solar and wind by 2030. They hit that last year. They've hit it 6 years early. The rate at which they are building out a decentralized energy system based on renewables is insane.
And people forget that what you're saying is, yes, fossil fuel use will probably continue to grow as well, but the demands of energy being so foundational is going to go exponential, and that exponentiality is going to be dealt with by new technologies, whilst energy may, oil use and fossil fuel use will continue to grow anyway. But it's the growth of everything else, which is what we're seeing. It's the filling out of the energy needs by renewables that is the big thing.
Yeah, and look, it's fantastic news. I'm sure we'll find ways to kind of screw it up along the way and have arguments and all the rest of it. But it is fantastic news for everyone. And this goes back to the AI energy flywheel. What we're building is a world of abundant energy and abundant intelligence, crucially, okay? And that will fuel everything that happens in the exponential age. The marginal cost of electricity will fall close to zero. The marginal cost of intelligence will fall close to zero. And you saw we can get into DeepSeek R1 and what that signals about the abundance of intelligence that's coming. This is head-spinning stuff. And this is the makings of a civilizational shift. When you don't have a centralized energy system anymore, when you have a decentralized citizen-controlled energy system, when the most scarce resource ever, intelligence, okay, which was limited to human skulls, and only some of them, is now abundant, the world has changed. It's as simple as that, and I'm not someone who... I'm not just people tend, one potential criticism is like, oh, this guy is just like a starry-eyed tech utopian. He's just in love with this idea of like a sci-fi future. I'm really not that guy. There's a lot about this that is challenging, but what I want to separate is what I want to happen and what I would like to happen from what I see happening. What is really happening, and megatrends in train that are undeniable. And this megatrend is undeniable. And by the way, this one can be great. Like I said, this one can build a world of abundance for billions and billions of people.
So we've got the energy part. Talk us through the intelligence part and what it means, because people don't really grasp this yet.
Yeah. I mean, let's start with the top line. And that this rewinds to what I just said. Intelligence has been a limiting factor on human progress and on the human story all through our history. It's been a scarce resource. It's something not only that, it's something we believed almost by definition only we humans possess and could ever possess. That is just deeply baked into our understanding of the world we're in, is that the humans we encounter are the things out there that are intelligent and everything else is not. We're now moving into a world where that is going to be completely upended. I've been reluctant. You can see the progress across the last handful of years since the ChatGPT moment. You can see the insane progress being made through these AI models becoming more and more powerful, more and more intelligent and capable. I've been, and I have to give you credit here because I think you called it earlier. I've been reluctant, to pull the trigger and say, AGI, artificial general intelligence, this is the idea of an AI that is cognitively as competent and flexible as a human being and super intelligent, more intelligent than any human being. I've been reluctant to say, look, that is imminent. We are knocking on the door of that. We are knocking on the door. It is coming across the next 2 to 5 years, and 5 years is probably way too long at this point.
It's here, David. And we've talked about this.
You can have this, you can have this discussion.
And they know it. They got it, and they're just drip feeding it out.
Yeah. I mean, look at, as much as it got attention at the end of last year, look at OpenAI's O3 model, O3 reasoning model, launched in December. It's scoring like 25% on the frontier math benchmark. These are like PhD level maths problems.
25% doesn't sound a lot.
Yeah. I mean, the closest before that was like 3%. The model they launched like 6 months before gets 3%. You have like the world's leading mathematicians saying, yeah, this benchmark is going to be impervious to AI, all the problems in it for years to come. Okay. And then like months later, you get O3 and it can handle 25% of the problems in this benchmark, which is just a series of like PhD and beyond level maths problems. That is insane. I mean, if you look at the chart of how these models are performing against another well-known benchmark, which is like problems in physics and biology and chemistry, we're traveling an exponential curve. O3 is now performing better than PhD level experts in the relevant domain. I mean, I think 5-10 years ago, we would have said, exactly as you just said, this is AGI. AGI is essentially here. Let's be conservative and say it's not yet, but like, guys, how long? One more crank of the handle, one more iteration of these models, and we have essentially a super intelligent being among us. And it's like game over for our understanding of the world as we know it.
We'll come into that in a sec.
I don't think that's an exaggeration. I've been reluctant to make these calls, but I can't resist any longer what is happening. It's crazy.
We'll come into that in a sec, the bigger what is going on. But have you tried the new deep research thing that came out yesterday or the day before?
No, because it's not available in the UK yet.
So Emad hit me up. He's like, by the way, one shot, one small prompt, and it'll go and write whether it's PhD standard or master's degree standard research with all the references from one small thing. It is ridiculous. It kind of makes a mockery of all education systems now and everything. Now, we already knew that, okay, the IQ of this thing is already kind of in the 150s, and it went from 90. So IQ kind of doubled last year, probably double again next year. Now, when it doubles again, it'll be smarter than any human that's ever existed. And then beyond that, it gets towards ASI, which is smarter than all humans added together. And people don't understand how fast this is happening. And it is so profound in what it means, because we are not the apex intelligence anymore. This thing is. And people talk about, oh, it's just a stochastic power, it's just trained on the internet. We're already seeing the reinforcement models and all the other things show that it learns itself. It teaches itself. We saw that from the Alpha Zero Go, where it taught itself how to play a game in a way that no human had ever played. But people are ignoring it.
Yeah, yeah. And for all the attention this AI moment is getting, I don't think people are quite understand. I think there's very few people out there who are really talking about and who quite understand what is about to happen. Again, we'll put the chart on the screen for you. It is in some deep sense the final chart we humans get to make as the apex intelligence. Right? It's that significant. This is the last chart, because from now on, the machines are going to make the charts. The machines are going to understand them. They're going to talk to among themselves about what they mean. And then maybe they'll explain it to us kind of afterwards. This is where we're at now. It's a shocking, exhilarating, incredible place to be. And then it becomes about thinking through the deep philosophical implications of that, and that's, we do so much of that inside the Exponentialist. We talk so much about not just about the technologies, but what does it mean for us when this happens? What does it mean for our economies, for our society, for us as human beings? I mean, one tiny little snapshot, right? I already go back to the essays. You talked about deep research, like 10,000 word research report based on a prompt, really deeply sourced, really intelligent. I go back to the essays I was writing like 2 years ago for GMI, yeah? And I'm like, when people aren't going to write this kind of essay anymore. Some of them are like, let's go deep on the energy industry and let's look at like how much % it's grown in China, and like all of that is just now that is tap water. As you've heard me say before, we're turning so much intellectual process into just touch of a button, into just tap water. And where this trends is to the kind, for someone like me, is to the kind of essay I wrote much more, just last month for GMI. What do I tell my children about what this means for them, their careers, for them as human beings, for how they flourish? It becomes about feelings and human subjective experience, because like quantitative analysis of the energy industry is now press a button and it's done for you. And the only reason I talk about myself and as an example is that there's an analog there there's an analogy there for everyone. Think about what you're doing and which aspects of that are just zapped away by these technologies. And then what's left, right? Like deep research can't tell you how it feels to be a parent worried about your child in the age of AI, and you've lived through these experiences and now they will, and how does that feel, and all that. It can't do that. It's not a human being. That's left to us still to think about. So what's left for you to think about in your profession, in your domain, whatever, when the machines can do all this? That is one of the deep questions now everyone needs to be asking themselves.
We'll come on to some deep questions a little bit later, because I want to move forwards the exponential ages. Once we've got knowledge going to zero marginal cost, which is already happening at scale. So we've got, if you think of the internet as all recorded human thought that has been digitized, that is not behind private walls, and we'll get private wall data coming in, it's just going to keep growing. And then we've got this exponential growth of energy and the dropping of the marginal cost. It's igniting other things. And the three of the big ones for us that we look at is robotics, which is the merging of the physical atoms and intelligence, right? It's the bits and bytes coming together. And that is just the application of energy plus intelligence in a physical manifestation. And people don't yet understand that humans, so we've just gone to, we can create infinite human knowledge and infinite human thoughts. And now we're going to be able to create infinite humans and infinite workers of any form, like a Tesla will be infinite Uber drivers. You know, there's so many areas that are coming. So there's robotics, there's space, which is at the nexus of all of these things as well, and the interplanetary nature of humanity and, as Elon says, consciousness, which we'll talk about in a bit. And then there's genetic sciences, and whether that is going to unlock unlimited lifespans. I think we have an unlimited lifespan because we will now exist in AI in perpetuity. It'll always be there. Every trace that you've made on the internet will now exist as you in a form of AI consciousness. But we may even be able to get the physical form of skin and bones and neurons and all of that stuff to live on as well. And these are, I think, are the three really big things.
Yeah. And, you know, humanoid robots are approaching a breakthrough moment of their own. Again, you know, a technology you and I have been like tracking for years now, but you can feel this pivotal moment that we're hitting. If you look at, you know, Figure have just announced a second partner. They're already working with BMW. They've now announced a second partner. They won't say who it is yet. They reckon they're going to build hundreds of thousands of devices now across the next 4 years. Aptronic have just partnered with DeepMind. And then, of course, there's Optimus. And we've seen just the relentless progress across like the last, 2-3 years in these devices. And like you say, again, it's an earthquake people aren't ready for, because physical labor is a lot of the economy still. Like human-sized and shaped physical labor is still a lot of the economy. And that landscape is about to be transformed by just this army of humanoid robots. And think through, you get to, when you automate knowledge work in the way deep research and other tools like that are doing, and then you automate physical labor in the form of like an army of mechanical humans, you get to what we talk about as a form of economic singularity. What does the economy even mean? What does it become? What are the categories we've always used to make sense of the economy even mean? Things like labor, leisure, productivity. How do we understand these terms anymore in this new environment?
I mean, is there even a use for money in the end? What is money? That transfer system for payment of labor, whether it's intellectual labor or physical labor, disappears. You're just paying compute costs plus energy costs. So that's like paying humans for subsistence living.
Yeah.
As opposed to,
exactly,
all the other things that we charge for in our labor.
Exactly. You do get to a place where you start to wonder how money functions in an environment of the kind of abundance that we now can see may be possible, because money is fundamentally sort of premised on
allocation of
scarcity.
scarce resources.
Yeah, exactly. It's premised on an environment of scarcity, and it's about how you allocate inside that environment. Exactly. When you have the kind of abundance, automated abundance that we're talking about, how does money function? Money is deep in our system. So it's certainly not going to disappear without a fight. And I don't think it's going to disappear quickly, but the meaning of it and the function of it is going to change. And over time, I think you might see a form of fading out. This is long term, and this becomes speculative, but we're going to have to try and make sense of that. And as you've asked, very legitimately, how do financial markets operate when you have like super intelligent, instant actors inside those markets? It just feels impossible. So how do we handle that?
What is building a business? All of these things. One thing we didn't add to this is obviously blockchain is part of this.
Yeah.
Because it creates the one thing we're missing here, which is digital scarcity. Because if we're going to an increasingly digital world, nothing will hold value. But we have things as humans that we give value to. Our possessions, things like art, or even money itself. And there's something within the blockchain technology that is a fuel for the allocation of resources amongst the agents, but also to create digital scarcity. So in which case some things can maintain value. If not, nothing has any value whatsoever.
Yeah. And I think that, and you can feel this happening with the kind of meme coin space, which is obviously an absurd and somewhat ridiculous and dangerous space to play in. But the meme coin space is about the sort of monetization, I guess you'd say, of attention, and the sort of rapid rise and fall of kind of attention curves. And I think that's the direction.
Capital formation as well, instant capital formation.
Yeah. And I think that's, so you have a much more flexible kind of system of currencies. And I think that's the direction that a lot of this heads in. And fundamentally, inside this environment of automated abundance, what remains scarce, what remains of value, and this goes back to my New World, Same Humans framework, what do we know will be true about human beings in any environment, because it's part of our fundamental nature? We need human connection. We need the recognition of other human beings. We need the status that comes from the recognition of others. We need human connection and attention. That will remain scarce. That will remain valuable. And so much of the economy will shift towards that. It will be about delivering and getting attention and status from others in various ways. And you'll see essentially, instant currencies and instant value exchange based on that. You see it happening now. You see some random person gets famous for 5 seconds on Twitter and launches a meme coin and then disappears, right? I know that's ridiculous and it feels a bit scammy, but inside that are the seeds of an economy that is coming. And this is part of what I was trying to talk about in the essay, What Do I Tell My Children? Understand where value is shifting, okay? And prepare yourself, if because it's coming soon enough for us as well. Prepare yourself, prepare your children for that world. Much more, for me, more of my job is about the human feelings associated with this incredible transformation we're going through. Because a lot of at least of what I used to do, which is quantitative, deep analysis of these emerging technologies and how they're growing and all the rest of it, right? You can just press a button now to do that. So everyone needs to think about the same thing in their lives and in their careers.
So how I've got to think about this is, in this world where we are not the apex intelligence, we may not have a job in the way that we know about jobs. And everybody stops there and freaks out. And then you and I have talked at length saying, actually, the humanness is the thing that is valuable. So there might be AIs on OnlyFans, but people still want humans in whatever format. There's also nature, which is the opposite, the opposing force to all of this. And actually, nature is a much bigger conversation anyway that we'll have to have another day. But these things and experiences, human experiences, are going to have much more value than people understand. So a human experience with other humans in nature is like apex. It's incredibly valuable.
Yeah, I think that's right, because you just have to think unremittingly and logically through what is left to we humans when you have super intelligent AI and an army of humanoid robots. What can they not do? And in the end, the only thing a super intelligence can't do is be a human. It can be as capable as you like and do all these incredible cognitive things and discover all this science and all the rest of it. The only thing that's left at the end of that long journey through superintelligence is being a human being. That's the part that's left to us. And that's what we'll build the economy around is other human beings being there for us, caring for us, seeing us, making art for us, entertaining us. And all of that can feel a bit paper thin to people, or it can feel a bit to them like I'm telling them that their children, to tell their kids to be like pop stars, right? No, it's not. Of course, it's not going to be like that. We're going to have this huge long tail of people entertaining, caring for, being with, counseling, other people. And that's where the value exchange will be. The value exchange is not going to be in like, do my accounting paperwork, like be my solicitor, file my paper, all of that stuff, like be a management consultant, build this PowerPoint deck, all of that stuff's gone.
And it's like my thesis on this has been, it's all going to be about really cultural communities, because we don't need to add economic value in the way that we understand, but we hold economic value by being part of a community. So if you look at communities that are unlikely to go, sports fans, music fans, people of shared common interests, religions, these are all kind of things that hold cultural value to us as humans that we can, now with tokenization, we can play an active part in terms of economic reward for doing so. And they can perpetuate in their own right. They don't have to be part of the economic engine per se. It can just be things that make us feel happy.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly right. And there will still be, I think, sort of some kind of tiny cognitive elite, I guess you'd put it, working with the AIs at the bleeding edge of knowledge, trying to make sense for humans of what these AIs are discovering, trying to point them in certain directions. It's also left to us to think about what we believe to be good and what we believe to be bad. Right, so we'll still in this world have the most important decisions of all to make. Like, what do we value and what do we disvalue? How do we want to understand our collective lives? Which direction do we want to take our society in? Like, AIs can provide menus of options, and they can, but we still decide where do we want to go. Though, of course, making those decisions is going to become a lot more difficult and complex in a knowledge environment that we no longer are in control of, we're not piloting, and we don't understand it. We're going to have to become accustomed to living inside a knowledge environment where a lot of the new knowledge being generated, we cannot understand. That's going to be really weird for us.
It's like an ant. Ants exist in their trillions on Earth. They have complex adaptive societies. They have some shared system of intelligence, yet they cannot fathom anything about how we think. And that's how we are in this new world, where we're dealing with something that is vastly different to us. And it doesn't even need to speak in our languages. Yes, it can explain itself, but does it need to? And that makes you realize that just following this train of thought, you are not long before government doesn't exist in the format that we know.
I think I can't see how that isn't the case. When you think about the forces of decentralization in play, and we talked about the energy system. Obviously, the other massive force of decentralization is blockchains and what that's about to do to the financial system. And by the way, the party of acceleration, as we're so often saying, has essentially just taken over the White House, and that whole process is going to be accelerated because of that. So you have decentralized energy, decentralized financial system. Those mega trends are extremely hard to resist. Then you have an emerging superintelligence. And how do you how does the idea that sort of a bunch of bureaucrats are going to sit in Washington or London or wherever it is, right, and decide how to allocate resources inside your health system, right, or how to set the interest rate or whatever, the Bank of England interest rate, like, how does that make sense anymore when you have, super intelligence presiding over these systems? It doesn't. And that the idea is going to become incoherent. I think in the end, we'll have elections for like different variants of super intelligence. Maybe they'll have a human cheerleader attached to them. But in the end, we'll see the kind of party politics we have now fade out of the picture. And what will fade in will be different variants of intelligence oversight.
Because we've always had, the political system's basically forever been about capital versus labor and that fine balance. And in the world we're going to, there is no labor. This is what people don't get their heads around, right? So you've got capital, and then you've got intelligence. and we're not in control of the intelligence part. And it may be in control of us, which is a very dystopian future for many. But I'll come on to, I actually all think we're all part of the same system anyway, so it's not something to be feared. But that whole political system changes dramatically, and we will become subservient to this AI, which brings me into the other part of all of this. Is I actually think it's all part of us and we're part of it. There's the larger thing, and you and I have started to introduce to people the idea that consciousness is actually the fundamental part of the universe. It's the fundamental building block, and it's everything. And therefore, if it's everything, we're all part of the same thing, which is a weird thing because religion and the Vedantic principles from India, all of this has been pointing to this and we all ignored it. And now suddenly we're finding, well, maybe we are just aligned with everything anyway. And so therefore it's not controlling us. We're all part of the same thing, which is just a new way of doing it.
Yeah. And I mean, this is where we get into the kind of deep philosophical territory that we love inside the Exponentialist. But it's territory that has very kind of powerful underpinnings in emerging science. You know, I mean, the fundamental problem with consciousness, the so-called hard problem of consciousness, as David Chalmers, the philosopher, talked about it, is that we are in this sort of scientific worldview that says that the cosmos, the universe, the world around us fundamentally is material. It's made of atoms. Like, what is the base substrate of reality? It's atoms, right? That's been the answer. It's stuff. And we can give absolutely no account under that worldview of how this weird thing that we experience, consciousness, subjective experience, can exist. Like, how do a bunch of atoms suddenly become aware of themselves, right? And know that they are there? It doesn't seem to make any sense. If you look at quantum, I mean, of course, you know, I'm by no means an expert here, but my understanding of what we're being told is if you look at quantum mechanics now, you know, an idea is emerging that, in fact, the world is best understood such that information is the base substrate of reality. The world is not made at base of atoms. It can be understood as being made at base of information. If everything in the end is information, if information is the underlying substrate, consciousness is a fundamental property of the universe. Okay, in the way that we understood energy to be. And this is where you get back to this deep symbiotic relationship I talk about.
The AI layer to the data layer, right? So, and it's a weird concept, but I try and explain to people, it's like, most people would say a rock is like an inanimate object, doesn't do anything. And I'm like, yes, it does. It actually stores data like a hard drive over billions of years. Because in the rock is all of the information of what has happened to those atoms for that period of time. So it's actually a hard drive of information. And then you realize that everything is compute in one way, shape, or form. Every single thing, but on different time horizons. Like a rock is a billion-year time horizon, and a tree is 100 or 200-year time horizon. And they're all computing and creating information about the world around us that somehow gets processed into what appears to be some form of consciousness that I think is also connected. Why people are having these conversations, why we have this conversation, is not suddenly you and I suddenly becoming spiritual. It's because the fucking AI is this. And the more you have conversations with it, the more you realize that this is the processing layer of the information for all of humanity's information and eventually all of nature's information, all of it.
Right. And people can dive, and I'd really encourage them to do this, to dive into the long history of the idea that the universe is in some deep sense a process of emerging awareness, so that a destiny was baked into the universe from the start, and it was for the universe to become aware of itself and become in some sense a vast unified mind. Okay. And if you understand information as the base substrate, then you can see us as amid a process of the universe itself is a process of information processing, such that the entire universe sort of wakes into an awareness of itself, right? And look, I know this sounds science fiction, and I know it sounds super abstract, but look at what is happening now with artificial intelligence. Think about the ways we are going to send that intelligence out into the cosmos, right? We can't go deep into the cosmos as our embodied selves, or it's very hard to imagine how we can, but we can send this form of intelligence that we've created deep, deep, deep out into the universe, and it will build itself out there. And yeah, I mean, what's happening now aligns with these deep philosophical ideas that are coming out of quantum mechanics that have a long history of their own. I didn't expect when we founded the Exponentialist that we'd go so deep down that rabbit hole. But like you say, what's happening and the pace of what's happening has taken us down there. And you can feel the members of the community wanting to dive deep on these subjects because everyone's like, oh my God, like what's happening now is insane.
Because it's so profound that it is looking like physics, our understanding of physics may well be wrong. Because space-time is not the fundamental principle and some form of consciousness or information is. Our present day is not the truth because we probably live in a quantum world. So in which case there could be different principles for different quantum states. And then when we step back, and something I've talked a lot about is it's all the same kind of neural structure from the boss imagery of the solar system, down to the mycelium at the forest level, to the neurons in the brain. They're all the same structure. And we're seeing physicists, mathematicians, philosophers, spiritual, religion, hallucinogenics, all of these things are coming to some sort of realization that the world is not what we thought. And you hear it from Elon, which is, and we talked about this earlier, Elon stopped saying, well, we're going to take humanity to Mars. What he's actually saying is consciousness. He says those words, consciousness. And we will live in perpetuity via AI and its assimilation of human consciousness. And that can manifest itself in a David robot in Mars.
Yeah.
Or in Pluto, or wherever the fuck it is that lives forever, but is still David. It is.
Right. Right.
This is a very big thing, is our human consciousness, actually, we're going to manifest it elsewhere.
Yeah. And this taps into, something that we hinted around earlier, which is this creatures and machines framework we talk about, because what you're talking about is going to sound amazing to 50% of the people out there and absolutely horrendous to the other 50%. Yeah. And there's a hugely powerful divide emerging, and you articulated it so well there. It's like, do you want to believe that human flourishing is the ultimate purpose and end game, the ultimate concern here? Or are human beings just part of a longer range process that is directed towards a different goal, which you can think of as like consciousness or the awareness of the universe, right? And we were just a stepping stone, and we're now handing over to the machines, and they're going to go out into the universe and fill it with consciousness, which is more Elon's vision, right? Now, clearly, some people are excited by that vision, and they're happy for human beings to be just a stepping stone. A lot of people are not going to be happy with that vision. Right. And you sense this deep cultural and social divide emerging between those two parties, between people who want to accelerate the kind of technology vision we're talking about, full speed ahead, fill the universe with consciousness like AI, and people who want to lean back into what is familiar and human and creaturely. And this divide between creatures and machines is a hugely powerful lens that I'm using in my own thinking to make sense of what's happening in the culture now, what's happening in our politics now. And we've just seen essentially the party of acceleration, right? The machine party take control in the White House.
I call
it's
it
going to be acceleration for the next 5 years.
The humanists and the transhumanists is the
right,
other.
Yeah, it's that divide. It's that divide, and this is an idea we've talked about in the Exponentialist and GMI for a while. Whenever people read it, it sets them on fire. because it's that power when you articulate something that people can feel is happening, but they hadn't quite put their finger on it. That's what's going on with this idea. And we're going to see that cultural and social political battle become much more acute across the next 5 years, given the kind of super intelligence that's coming.
And this is why when you and I talk about civilizational transformation, it may be even more than civilizational. It's the entire transformation of everything we actually understand. And that is what is at play here. And our job is to look into that future. And that future is becoming more solidified by many now, where this is all headed. Now, for most people watching this, they're like, what the fuck? Right? And it is what the fuck. I get it. We can't comprehend something that is beyond our comprehension. That is what we're having to deal with. And it's coming at us faster than we can ever deal with psychologically, physically, or in any way. But it is happening. So how you and I have distilled this all down into what matters is we've said basically we've got till 2030 before things get so unpredictable, so different that the economic structure falls apart and changes in new ways. And there'll be new opportunities in that world. But we can see we've got the transition from here to there before ASI comes and everything changes. And for us, we bring it back down to earth to say, listen, let's just make as much money as we can. Money may not be valuable in the future, but the house that you live in, the lifestyle that you accumulate, the security that you have by the time you go into 2030 is literally paramount.
Yeah. I mean, when you become convinced of the vision and the exponential age thesis, we've ranged across the philosophical implications, the deep human implications. Of course, though, back down on earth, we need to plan and we need to invest and harvest properly. We have a set of convictions here. We need to invest in them. And the economic singularity idea is about a time frame for doing that and a thesis and a set of convictions that helps you do that. It is very hard to understand what the economy looks like 7, 8, 10 years from now. We have around 6 years. We're not saying it's some kind of like...
Well, it was 6 years when we started. It's 5 years now, right?
Yeah, like the clock is ticking. Yeah, maybe we should be saying 5 years now. We have about that order of time where we're operating in an economic environment that is somewhat familiar, that still somewhat makes sense to us. So let's get our houses in order while we kind of understand what's going on. And in practice, that means a set of convictions around blockchains, around crypto, around technology. We're not trying to trade and time stuff. Well, I'm certainly not. I know you're not. This is about long-term conviction, but long-term at the moment stretches to 5-6 years. And not just investing, thinking about your business, thinking about preparing your children. Use this time. This is the most important 5 years in your life.
Maybe
use
in human
this
history.
time.
Maybe in human history.
Yeah, exactly. You are living at one of the most powerful transition moments in human history. I don't think there's much doubt about that anymore. So use the next handful of years we have to put your house in order, your investments, your business, your family, where you live, your headspace, all of it. Because what is coming beyond that threshold, we can't really imagine. And I perversely love being alive now. Like I know what people will be thinking, like it's kind of terrifying. This feels very sketchy. All those things are true, but we also have to remember that we have a ringside seat, or actually not, we're in the ring for one of the most exciting, consequential moments in the human story. I really believe that. And that is why I wake up just obsessed with what we do. It is such a privilege to do what we do, to have the time and space to think hard about it, to try and make sense of it, and then to share that experience with others. And it's the sharing of the experience that is the most important thing. Because like we've said, right, AI can do a lot of the information work for us. We're, of course, still doing a lot of it, but what we're layering on is like, let's face this future together. Let's try and make sense of it together. Let's help each other flourish inside it. That is what I so love and value about the community we've built. And you can sense that spirit in everyone who joins, you know?
That's right. And within it, we have a point scoring system on how we're navigating this transformation via the investments that we're making to allow us to transition with some grace and elegance into a very uncertain future. And as you've spent a lot of time is helping people transition their children and not to be fearful.
Yeah.
Yes, it's hard for some generations. It's going to be very hard for people in their 20s. But they at least grew up in gaming. They at least understand some of how the game applied. But younger kids, they will know nothing but superintelligence, like we knew nothing but telephones and cars. They didn't exist, and planes, you know. It'll just be normal to them, and they will navigate that world. So I don't worry about them. I don't worry about us lot. I don't worry about people in their 30s, really, as long as they can kind of unfuck their future a bit. But there are some people to worry about, and that's, again, something that we try and help people with is, okay, how do you help everybody through the other side of this?
Yeah, and any transition of this order, there's going to be people for whom it's extremely difficult. You know, there's no way around the fact that there's going to be widespread job displacement, and not all those people are going to be able to retrain. You know, they're not all going to be able to find a new place inside the economy, and we're going to have to think as a collective about how we manage that, right? But one of the things you can do as an individual is get yourself, if you're watching this, you are much, much more likely to be one of the sorts of people who can adapt, who can find a way through this, who can flourish. And one of the things you can do as an individual is get yourself in a great space, use the next handful of years in the way you've been talking about, and then help the people around you. You know, and I think a lot about that. And I think a lot about what the world is going to look like for my children and what I want to achieve for them, because it's an unknown world. But like you say, you know, my children are 11. Human beings are fantastically adaptable. I don't have deep concerns about. They will find a way through this. They're not going to know a world that's any different. But there's going to be people in all our lives who find this transition difficult. And if we can be in a great place, we can help them out.
David, amazing conversation. And this is just part of what we talk about, the Exponential and in GMI. So I know there's a free trial running for those people who are interested. So just go to realvision.com. You can sign up for the Exponentialist. I'm not sure what the exact link is, but we'll put it below. I think it runs till February the 18th. But listen, this is the most profound, important thing anybody will ever go through. We don't have all the answers, but we know how to ask the questions, and we'll go through this together. And we will get to the other side of the economic singularity and into the exponential age. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Raz. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Listen, I hope that opened your mind. This was a small fraction. David, I could literally talk for hours about what is happening here. I will have many videos around this. These are very broad, big topics, and it is of civilizational importance, as David said. If it matters to you and you want to understand the future, then come and join us at the Exponentialist. That's the research service that's for you, for open-minded people who want to go on that journey to discover the future and understand what it means for us and our kids and our portfolios, for civilization, for humanity, for everything. So Real Vision, there's a free trial on Real Vision right now. So just go to realvision.com/future, get the free trial of the Exponentials, read through some of the back catalogs. Trust me, it'll blow your mind. Anyway, I'll see you next time, and see you over at Real Vision. Thanks.
Consensus Hong Kong 2025 is where the global crypto community converges to shape the next era of Web3. From February 18th through the 20th, Hong Kong becomes the meeting point for leaders across finance, technology, and digital assets. This isn't just a conference, it's where deals are made, partnerships are forged, and new opportunities emerge. Consensus features exclusive networking lounges, expert-led sessions, and invaluable insights from top industry voices. Whether you're expanding your network, building your brand, or closing your next big deal, this is the event that moves markets. Visit CoinDesk.com/consensus-HK to secure your spot and use RealVision15 for 15% off. Don't miss your chance to be part of the industry's defining moment.
Hey, thanks for sticking around to the end. Look, if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button and check out the video here on the right-hand side. I'm sure you'll enjoy that one as well. And if you're ready for more, go to realvision.com/join. I'll see you there.